Partnerships, Maximizing Your R.O.I. It's going to be moderated by Dave Hopkinson, the head of partnerships for the Spanish soccer club Real Madrid. Any Real Madrid fans in here? There you go. That is the right answer. Correct. Prior to that, he was the Chief Commercial Officer for the Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. He has over 20 years of professional sports sales. Oh, boy. Not a good sign. Yes, over 20 years of experience. He's worked in 5 different leagues, including the NHL and NBA. He actually started his career with MLSE in 1994 with the expansion of the Toronto Raptors. Sorry, I should say the NBA champion Toronto Raptors. There you go. Yeah. And his first job in pro sports was an account executive with the Argos in 1993. Jeff Deline is the Chief Revenue Officer of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. He's been with MLSE since 1997. He's contributed to the expansion of the NBA and the Toronto Raptors, and later the expansion of MLS and Toronto FC. He also played an instrumental role in securing the largest naming rights deal worldwide with Scotiabank, and in partnering with Drake and creating the OVO retail line, so you can talk to him after if you're looking for a jacket. Mark Ditmars is the Vice President of Corporate Partnerships for Toronto Blue Jays. Before that, he held roles at EMI, Music Canada, and Labatt Breweries of Canada before landing his current job. With the Jays, he oversees every one of the team's corporate partnerships all the way through from idea creation to execution. John Doig is the Executive Vice President and Head of Retail Distributions for Scotiabank. In this role, he's responsible for defining and implementing the strategic direction, goals, and execution of key initiatives for retail banking in Canada. He oversees all of Canadian branch banking and small business banking. He joined Scotiabank in 1998, and he's held increasingly senior positions. He also played a crucial role in the aforementioned branding of Scotiabank Arena. Kyle McMann is the Group Vice President of Business Development and Global Partnerships at the National Hockey League. He's the current, he oversees corporate sales of the NHL in Canada, and he develops on-strategy platforms for partners and prospects. He and his team lead various partner integrations and sales for some of the biggest NHL events over the years and over the calendar year, including the Canada-based All-Star Weekends and some of the Tim Hortons NHL Heritage Classics. And finally, Jackie Ryan is Chief Brand and Commercial Officer at the Canadian Olympic Committee. She oversees the digital, brand, and marketing partnership arms of the organization. She joined the COC after spending 7 years at Scotiabank, where she was the Vice President of Sponsorship, Marketing, Partnerships, and Philanthropy. And before her move to the COC, she held the role of Vice President, Global Social Enterprise and Sustainable Business at Scotiabank. This is one of the most stacked panels we have today, and I'm out of breath. So without further ado, let's start the panel.
It is. It took about 10 minutes to get through everybody's title and background. So we've got a great group here, a great group of friends, a great group of leaders. I'm excited to be a part of this conversation. A little known fact is I've been a supporter of PrimeTime for many years. I love it. I've decided to make this panel. I've never moderated a panel anywhere. So let's see what happens. What's the title? R.O.I. Maximizing your R.O.I. Look, partnerships is a big business now. We all know that. We were talking about the size of the Scotiabank deal, but whether you're a big property or a small property, what's clear is that this isn't philanthropy any longer. There's got to be a business case. There's got to be a strong ROI, and I'd love to get your points of view on that and for you to share that with the group. I'm going to go in the order in which you returned my email yesterday. So Kyle, okay, Kyle, you've got you've been at the NHL an awful long time, an incredible property globally, an incredible property, especially here in Canada. You're the seller in this case. Tell us what your experience is as you're dealing with brands. They say, great, we're all hockey fans, we get that, but I've got to make an ROI. As a seller, how do you approach that?
It's a great question.
Thank you. You wrote it.
Mostly. Listen, if you could pinpoint the return you're going to get off a sponsorship, I wouldn't have this job. It'd be really easy. We could all just go home and not have to work. The challenge is that you're really selling something intangible, and like any type of vehicle you buy or anything else, your mileage that you get out of these sponsorships can vary. It's all about what you put into it and how you define kind of that role that you create. So as a seller, you really have to, and we always say the word partnership, not sponsorship. Sponsorship's that dirty transactional word that's about taking money from somebody and building your business that way. You really, as a seller, have to put yourself in the shoes of that partner on the other side of the table and figure out how you can create something that their brand uniquely owns and build truly a reason, a role for them to be here. And once you start to unlock those pieces, you're going to have to arm them with data points to bring back, because you're asking them to do something risky. A spend in sponsorship is not as easy as walking into senior management and saying, I'm going to go buy X on Facebook and I'm going to deliver Y in acquisitions. I can show that. I'm going to drive a bunch of dollars into a 400 GRP cable campaign, and I can justify that through all of the media models that we've got. You've got to bring back to your partner, your sales liaison that you're working with, how you can create value. Some of it's going to be working media dollars that have sort of at least industry-defined notions. And then you've got to try to give them what this can create, because you're not selling media, you're selling message. And when you start to figure out what that can evolve into, it's where you start to build out what this truly can be. I think when you think about that first deal, you're not looking to win as the seller. You're looking to create an opportunity to get to that renewal and look at these things as 3-term opportunities. So, you don't want to get blown out of the first deal 9-0 and give it away, because it is a business, as Dave led off with. But I think if you can build a way where you can make it safe, give them the tools that you can define, which is in a lot of cases that working media value that comes with the partnership, and selling the hope, giving your case studies on what other partners in similar but very different categories have been able to create out of it, and arm them with the tools to give them the opportunity to go to their top of house and say, we should do this, and make them feel that there's going to be risk, but there's great reward from it. This is about selling trust. You are truly a partner in this, and you don't do business with people that transact. You do business with people that you trust. We're sitting here with a guy we've done a bunch of partnerships with, right on both sides of me here. And you're trying to build a future that then on the renewal you can start to even the score a little bit and build out what the true value proposition is that you're
You can
selling.
say even the score to me then when you to the second re-up?
That's right, the third re-up.
Oh, yeah.
So help us understand that. So you're doing an initial deal, and it's going to be 3 years long maybe, but you're telling me that in the initial process, you're saying, look, this is the first chapter in what is going to be a long book together, and we're going to write the second chapter based. Is that sort of the way you're approaching this with prospects?
Absolutely. I mean, we sit down with everyone and we look at our track record. We've had Pepsi contracted through 16 years, Scotiabank's contracted through 15 years. We look at that first term as the opportunity to build together, get creative, define our value. Kraft Hockeyville, Kraft's been a partner for 40 plus years, now coming up to 7 in the US. These are relationships that you build, form, and grow, and that's how you kind of create value. If you're a transactional business, you're going to quickly figure out that you run out, because there's only 2 big enough beverage companies on the carbonated soft drink side. There's 5 real big banks that you can work with. There's a couple of beer companies that you can work with. If you can't figure out your role with one of them and start to build that, you might get in a situation, and sometimes leverage falls to you, where you get into a renewal opportunity and you've got multiple prospective partners that are all looking and want to work with you. That doesn't happen every day. You can try to create a market for it, but you're not going to build your business over time by churning deals on a term-to-term basis. This is about the long lens, and it means in some ways that you're okay taking a little bit less to build something that will ultimately pay off in the future.
That makes sense, thank you. So Jackie, I mean, I'd like to get your perspective, not just on that, but I think you've got the most interesting profile here in lots of ways, because you have been a buyer representing the sponsor for so many years, Scotiabank, and I guess was RBC before that, but now you've got the new job at the COC, and you are the vendor. So how does that experience being a buyer, inform how you go to market with the COC?
And I'm so glad that I've gone after Kyle. Good morning, everybody, because I really totally agree with where Kyle was going with this notion of value. So for me, 20 years in financial services, 3 months at the Canadian Olympic team, and what's different is that on the financial services side of the equation, my job was to build the business cases and as to why we would take on a certain sponsorship or not, negotiate the deals with some of our friends here. In some really challenging circumstances, having to exit properties, really having to work through the business cases to why we would not renew a property, and delivering that feedback, which is not a fun thing to do. You're seeing a lot of consolidation in the marketplace, particularly for some of the bigger brands where they're very, very focused in certain areas. And so over time, you're definitely seeing that less fragmentation and less numbers of properties that brands are sponsoring. So in my short time at the COC and in speaking with our partners, what we're doing now is we're really pivoting to value creation, which I think really builds on what you were just saying, Kyle. And so that's not to say that revenue doesn't matter. Revenue matters a lot. Canadian Olympic team is a not-for-profit. 90% of our revenue goes right back to the sports system, whether that's funding Olympic athletes on the global stage, or it's celebrating Olympic values and really encouraging all Canadians to be Olympic in these times that are very, very challenging. So, what's important there is that, so we're sort of moving beyond revenue generation as the sole measure and pivoting to this notion of value creation. Certainly business is being disrupted everywhere we turn, but sport is not immune to disruption. And innovation is so critical to how we go to market and how we run our business. Long-term sustainable resources are really, really important for growth, to drive growth for ourselves, but also drive growth for the sports system. And our ecosystem of partners, whether that be our brands, our sponsor partners, our athletes, the sports system, everybody's looking for value. And so we're really pivoting our business to make sure that we're thinking about that. And so when I say that, ultimately, by moving toward less short-term thinking and more about long-term value, it is very much about really driving consideration and loyalty with whether that be our fans or our partners. And so let me tell you what I mean by that. So when we say value creation, there's many streams to that. Ultimately, revenue is one of them, so net new value. So what revenue are we bringing into the organization to drive this long-term sustainability? But then there's more value, better value. What can we do with our existing partners to make sure that they want to return and that they're really seeing value as it relates to loyalty with customers or consideration with new? And then there's shared value, which really, really matters. And that's about investing in not just the sports system, not just our partners' business, but very much about building a better Canada and how we can all do that better. It's doing business for good. And if you think about investing in the Canadian Olympic team, really it's about helping Canadians be more active and some of them actually making inroads on the world stage, right? So, some examples in terms of some of the deals that we have. We just announced Sobeys as our first grocery partner. They're our first grocery partner, perhaps because all of a sudden our property is relevant because we're providing value. They not only wanted to fund Olympic athletes on the world stage, but they wanted to have a direct impact in the community, a direct impact with our athletes. So of course they're giving cash, that's a big part of the deal, but what they're also doing is helping create an environment where our athletes have access to healthier options as it relates to food. So we literally, in some instances, might just back up a truck full of food right into our sport institutes across the country and make sure the athletes have what they need to train and compete better. You talk about Bell is a really, really important partner of ours. Bell gives phones to every single Olympic athlete, phones and data, which has tons of value to the athletes. But it's important to Bell to get their product out there and be really, really relevant in the context of the Olympic environment. And so when our Olympic athletes are on their phones and they're tweeting on Bell Let's Talk Day about a subject that matters to Canadians broadly and athletes specifically. That means the world to Bell because it's integrated their business. It's demonstrating from the athlete perspective that these phones matter and the topic matters, and that will help us with renewal and loyalty and demonstrating value.
So both you and Kyle are talking about, we're not talking about signs a whole lot here. These are complex,
Absolutely.
bespoke programs you're building for your prospects and all of your clients. So John, you're having an incredible career at Scotiabank. You're a long time, you've worked with your way throughout that organization, long time CMO, and then you had a job change. What was that? About a year ago? When was that?
Yeah, it's a January 1.
To be running the retail banking. So you're in the hard part of the business now, not the touchy-feely brand stuff, but the hard part of the business now. How do you view? Has that changed how you view partnerships, how you view sponsorships, how you view marketing? Being on the other side of the equation.
These crazy marketing guys, eh? Yeah. What were they thinking? No, see, it's not lost upon me that I've been at the bank for about 21 years, and half of my time I ran marketing in some capacity. Last 5 years I was a global head of global CMO, and it's not lost upon me that when they put me into the job that runs the frontline business, that all the things I said that these sponsorship, partnership packages were going to deliver are now for me to deliver. And I say that with somewhat of a straight face. I honestly believe that I bring something to the job of in this retail small business job in Canada that I come in with the view that we did these deals, we bought these assets, we partnered with many different organizations to drive differentiate in our business. Banking's banking. My mortgage looks like a lot of other banks' mortgages. Right? I like to think our people are different, and I like to think the things that we touch, hockey. I mean, this evening is also the Scotiabank Giller Prize. I mean, so I'm here in the morning talking about hockey and the tens of millions of dollars that Scotiabank puts into supporting mostly kids hockey, but some of the NHL things too. Canadian teams right across the country. But this evening we'll have one of the most prestigious literary awards in the world. And we've been attached to that for 15 years. We've been attached to the NHL for 15 years. A lot of these things are 15, 20-year overnight successes. You got to continue to work at it. And and again, I mean, like it's. I believe what Kyle said. Echo what Jackie's saying. We didn't get into these deals because it's a nice, cool, shiny object. With my friends from MLSE, we've partnered for 20 years, and it's there's a lot of things to be considering in that partnership. Things will change over time, and we also need to be flexible. So the cultures of the companies and the organizations that we partner with are super important. For me, I get to leverage, whether it's the Kingston Frontenacs, which we are the proud bank of, Barrie Colts, or an NHL team, or the Humber Valley Sharks or the Toronto Titans. Minor hockey in GTHL. These teams are all important to us because they connect with the communities where we live and work, and I can make a difference in those communities as a banker. Our branch management can make a difference. Our staff right across the country, sense of pride internally. Our bankers love being attached to hockey, but they also love being attached to literature, and they love being attached to the many other items in the arts and culture area that we sponsor. So those things create an ecosystem. And the ecosystem has to be feeding each other, and you, as us, as the sponsor, as the person who's cutting the check, we have to work hard at it too, right? I love Sobeys, feeding the athletes, love that, and in Medline and crew get it. Michael came out of Tire, where he did a fantastic job there. I think this is going to be a brilliant opportunity for them. We're a bank, got to work a little harder. I don't sell pucks, I don't sell sticks, I don't have hats, and I don't have food, right? So we have to work a little bit harder how to connect our properties to benefit our business, but we do it, and I think one of the most satisfying moments was, thank you for bringing us a championship with the Raptors, but Tangerine is the official bank of the Toronto Raptors. So when we did the deal, Scotiabank became official bank of the Leafs. We got Scotiabank Arena, and Tangerine, wholly owned subsidiary of ours, got basketball. So numbers when, during the basketball playoff run, during the game, website visits up 50%, signups up 50, 60% for accounts. 40, 50,000 new customers came in and funded their accounts during the Raptors run. There's challenges with science, but I don't have to be too much of a scientist to say that there's a connection there. Mm-hmm. And a lot of comfort came to a lot of folks and shareholders around the country when they saw that and they realized the reach that gave us. So again, partnership and culture need to be aligned. You got to get lucky sometimes, right?
Yep.
But en masse, these deals are long term, and you stick with it, and you stay focused on the things that are working for you, and continue to evolve. So that's from a business standpoint.
So you built a great position in the marketplace as Canada's hockey bank. Makes a lot of sense. Hockey seems quite popular. But is it hard to defend? How do you guide some of the decisions that you're making around some real long tail stuff? Your support for minor hockey, for example, where those kids aren't going to be customers for an awful long time. Now that you're on the other side of the bank, has that changed your thinking at all, or?
You know what? It's no. I believed it all along the way, and I'm not. It's one of those things I can say it, but some of you know me in the room that I've been kind of passionate about this, and this has been something that I believed could truly differentiate, and I believed it because we did a lot of research. We talked to a lot of families. We talked to a lot of parents about things, and they said, "Listen, love the idea that you're helping me, get my kid into hockey, but I'm not very good at managing money. Can you make sure you help my kids manage money?" And we started to understand the advice is really important. And I'd say that two things move our brand in Canada more than anything in a positive way, and it's minor hockey and our SCENE program. And to the extent that we can continue to push those things together, we do some work with MLSE, with SCENE, and bring that kind of lifestyle entertainment piece to the table through that program. And minor hockey, the Scotiabank skaters that are across the country, those are selected from minor hockey teams that we support, 10,000 teams a year. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of money, but 12 years later, there's nothing that gives us more of a positive brand lift than those two items.
That's incredible. So much good work for young people. So, Mark, we were having an interesting little back and forth about young people. There's lots of young people in the room. PrimeTime's always been great about making sure we got access to students and the next generation of sports leaders. At the Jays, you're doing something interesting around a defined leadership program for your young talent.
Yes.
Can you talk about that a bit?
How many students in the room?
Excellent.
Excellent. How many are going to graduate the next year? Excellent. So leaders, Toronto Blue Jays have created a program that we call our Leadership Development Program. And it's a program that you can find on the Rogers portal every year. It's a paid gig, 1-year contract, and we're looking for the best of students that are out there. We recruit at all of the Ontario colleges, Canadian universities, I should say, Queen's, McGill, Western, and all points in between. And it's a great job. You get executive leadership, mentorship, some really meaty programs. It's just not a coordinator's job for a 12-month or an 8-month period. You get coaching, mentorship, and about 50% of the people end up getting a full-time job. So we hire probably 20 to 25 a year, and the success rate of these kids has been tremendous. And we've had the program now we're going into its 4th year. A new intake just started today, as a matter of fact, at the Jays, and they'll work till next Christmas. So if you're interested in something like that, where you think you have the skills and you're top of the crop where you're going to school, you should look at it. It's probably, I think it goes online and live in August on the Rogers portal, and it's there every year. And it's a great entry-level job with great experience and a good payout at the end.
Well, I think that's impressive. I think back to I always understood that an internship was mostly licking envelopes. So it sounds like you have evolved that program significantly. But it also sounds like that's a pretty big organizational commitment.
Well, and it's
you're
across
asking your executives to invest
Yeah.
their time.
And it's across all functions, right? So it's just not corporate partnerships. It's finance. It's baseball operations. It's HR. It's building operations. It's game entertainment. It's every function in the that is responsible for putting on a game of baseball or operating the business of baseball. And it doesn't matter if you're interested in CP or whatever your interests are, there's a lot of jobs that are available and you'll get the skills required and most importantly, the executive mentorship. It's a big commitment.
So speaking of interns, you were an intern.
I licked envelopes,
That's
yeah.
a lot of envelopes.
Cleared storage rooms, yeah.
But honestly, congratulations, a recent promotion to Chief Revenue Officer for MLSE. So you're overseeing all the revenue there, but I want to talk about the Raptors. We worked together an awful long time there. We worked for some really bad teams. And then, of course, now you've got the best teams. So you've got that experience of what does winning mean for the business? Have you started to see that impact? Did it show up earlier this year? Is this some stuff that's going to take some time to come to fruition? What's the experience?
For those of you who don't know, Dave and I worked. Dave was my direct boss for 19 years at Maple Leaf Sports, and my first season there, we were 16-66, and that was before we started Maple Leaf Sports and merged. And I think we honed our craft at being very good and understanding what to do when you're not good. It's much easier to walk into a team that's winning and be able to go and do 4 or 5 new deals because people want to come and find you. You look at the darling the Raptors have turned into. The inside of our seat and seat holder box says this year, it says, we were a basketball team playing in a baseball stadium in a hockey town, and now we're world champions. And it just talks, it hits a chord with everyone, because it talks about how long, we stuck in there. There were days when people said, how often do they tell us it's not going to work? So that basketball won't work in Canada. And you look at the way this entire country gravitated toward this team because of what they represented, how Canadian of a brand they actually were. It united all kinds of diversity and different people. Look at the parade photos at Maple Leaf Square. And I don't see a huge impact right now in partnerships on ROI. What we did, it's a retention play and a reward play. And what I mean by that is, we've had Coke with us ever since we've worked there. We've had Molson with us ever since we've worked there. We've had Scotia ever since, from day one, these people that stuck with us when we were 16-66. And we weren't great. And the Leafs from jerseys were being thrown on the ice. All these people stuck with us. And about 5 years ago, I was on the same panel. Brian Cooper was the moderator, and Jackie and I were on the same one. And the Leafs were going through a hard time, and the Raptors were not very good. This was before We the North. We were still charging premium prices, and we believe in exclusivity and passion and avidity, and there's a whole theory around why partnerships work. And Brian Cooper had asked me, should you be giving money back? Winning matters. And I talked about the idea around amplification. Partnerships, because we do them exclusively, because there's only one Scotia in the world that can use that Leaf mark to make them better and different than any one of their competitors, what we're able to do as long as we listen and build strategic objectives together is worth what it's worth. And when we lose, some of the amplification dies and the reach doesn't get to where you want it to be. But we don't come back looking for a discount. And when we win, when everything gets blown out from 10 times, their first year as a naming rights partner, and I know John took a lot of heat, and I know Jackie did too, when we sat in these rooms late at night, and there was tons of debate internally on their side, whether we should do this or not, to turn around in the first year. Did we promise them a championship in the first year? No, we did not. Does it amplify and reward and do things differently that we never could have put a price tag on, but we're not going back and looking for more money? We're so happy that we can deliver this and continue to work together. It reshapes our objectives. It reshapes what we're doing together in the marketplace, because now we have the learning on the brands and how we're going to go and attack what their next objectives are. But the key to ROI for us right now is listening, understanding I find a lot of times partners can't come up with what their objectives are. Awareness you hear all the time. That's an easy one through media and everywhere else that we do it. But some of the ones that have been really successful for us are when we sit down, and what we've done with McDonald's this year and drove their business. McDonald's wouldn't work with us for about 10 years because they thought we were doing sponsorship. And they're like, we don't do sponsorship. And we were begging to get in that door and just be able to have a conversation with them. And one of the rewards we've seen with them this year, they just they needed to drive more people to McDonald's app. We did something simple, 12 threes, you sign up, you go redeem for a medium fry, and we have a nice deal where they are paying us some money, but the return from every one of those kids that they were trying to reach that downloaded their app, which ended up being 15 times what they thought it would be, and then the additional money when they went and redeemed their fry and ended up getting a Diet Coke with it, drove their business exponentially to what they were paying us. So in my mind, that's a perfect partnership. That's where we will see the ROI work, because McDonald's will stay with us like Scotia has and Molson has and Coke has, hopefully for the next 20 years.
Okay, so it's a great team. They're still playing great this season.
Yeah.
Tell me about the difference between a great team and a championship team, though, because I have no experience with that. You guys delivered that after I left. Has that been an even greater?
Funny how that is, eh?
I don't want to try to conclude,
No connection
John.
there.
I
No.
tell all my friends, I really did nail the timing. Okay, but a great team, a team that's consistently good, and a team that's a champion, different?
Yes, and there is a difference. The championships, if you're talking business-wise, culturally, you can see it amongst the team and the player, the attitude in the office. I was down at some of those games in Oakland, and the way they walked out after winning Game 4, it's the greatest game in the 23 years I've ever worked here, almost in tears walking out of the building. But when you watch those men go on that court with Masai in the back and Bobby, and they go up 3-1, and then just the determination and lack of celebration and commitment that they weren't done is different than anything I've seen from any other team we've ever worked with in all the years. On the business side, what it's doing is it's opening doors and allowing us to have conversations. Like right now, we have the activation of the year in Major League Soccer, the NBA, and the NHL, and it's something we're really proud of, because on our partnership team, we have a strategy team and an activation team. We have no one making a commission. Everything is a team-oriented goal and a focus and how we work together. It's opening new doors for us and having conversations with the Ubers and Googles and those non-traditional deals that you used to never be able to have a conversation in that. But what we're doing with cloud and cognitive and AI and being able to tell stories, because the teams are champs and what these businesses are doing to drive our championship aspirations and winning has allowed us to approach the market in a way that we honestly couldn't go out and say we were champions. We're good, but the champion conversation has really changed the appetite of many of our partners. So it's not our existing partners that we're under contract with we're not seeing, but now we're trying to find the right strategic partners to be able to do more with and do it differently, that being a champ has allowed you to be able to go out and do.
That makes sense. Okay, I've got some questions for the panel. And the first one's actually, I really just want the answer to. So digital social. It's a metric. Everybody understands where they are in their ecosystem on the big three platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Is there an economic model here for, I'm gonna ask the properties first. Is there an economic model here for the properties? And John, I'd love your perspective as a buyer, where it is for you and a priority scale, or is this just gonna be another way to, have your brand around while the platforms make all the money?
Well, I'd say there better be an economic model because that's where the industry is going. I read in 2020 they are saying 50% of marketing budgets broadly will be associated with digital. 50% of sales will be done in the digital environment. And pretty darn soon, 50% of the global population will be under 30 years old. And these are digital natives who literally sleep with the phone underneath their pillow. Mm-hmm. So we've got to figure this out. And as we talk about value and we talk about loyalty and getting these partners to come back and really appreciate what we can do and build together, we've got to move with their business, and that's where their business is going. And when you're on the property side and you hear these stories about, the partner didn't renew with me, it's because they aren't necessarily looking for rink boards in isolation. They want the rink boards. That's not the starting point. The starting point is what can we do together as businesses, and how can we as a property be a growth engine for your business? And then the rink boards and the logos and all those things come with. So we will monetize digital. We are. We're starting with what matters most to our partners, but then looking at everything we have that can help build a digital universe that matters for them, right? So look at your reach. So we have highly engaged partners, highly engaged consumers. 87% of Canadians care a lot about Team Canada. So what are we doing to engage those partners, making sure we have the storytelling, the content, the tech stack that can actually aggregate the data, and then provide that back to our partners as, additive value, increased value, so that they'll want to come back. So it's there, and frankly, we better pivot to be there.
Okay, so John, and that's, I agree with you, we got to figure this out.
Yeah.
So John, you, as the buyer, when you're making a sponsorship contract, a new partnership with a big property, an MLSE, whomever you're across the country, are you funding that out of traditional media dollars or digital media dollars or sponsorship alone? How do you put that together in your head?
Yeah, so I'd say it's not a simple answer, but I'll go back to this word ecosystem, right? So the world is different than it was 20 years ago, right? We all agree on that. My kids have their phones under their pillows, they do, and I'd say I run branches across the country, branches, bricks and mortar. They're busy, but they're busy different than they were 10 years ago. People aren't coming in to deposit a check. People aren't coming in for a passbook update. They're coming in for advice conversations on more complex situations, more complex financial issues. And we've pivoted in our branch network to do that. I use this example a lot. When I ran marketing, many of our digital natives who we hired in our digital factories around the world, we have 5 of them in different countries around the world, these digital factory folks were awesome in pushing us into being more aggressive, being digital first. But there was also a balance. Someone said to me once, well, you got to get to a world where everything's going to be digital. It's 100% digital. And then I kind of scratched my head and I said, kind of like Apple? And then the initial answer was, yeah. And I go, you ever been to their stores? They're pretty freaking busy, right? And Apple's out-of-home budget, I don't know, drive down the road. How many billboards do you see for Apple? Amazon Prime Day, they spend, $1 bazillion to tell people in radio, TV, and out-of-home to go online and buy stuff. It's an ecosystem. You got to shift and pivot. It's not always 100% digital. It's not always 100% rink board, right? But you got to be putting together the right mix, and that's where I think more of the science is going to be on. And we'll get better and smarter at putting that right mix together, so the ecosystem becomes what I'm experiencing it in. Whether I'm at the Kingston Frontenac's game or I'm at the Toronto Maple Leaf game, you've seen a Scotiabank connection. You may have come out with a Scotiabank scarf in support of your team, and then I don't need a mortgage right now. I don't need financial services, but I want to be on the shopping list when you do need financial services. So I need top of mind, and this is where I say banks need to work a little harder. And you know what? I'm also going to be, our partnership with Rogers. We have one of the largest media contracts that Rogers would have. And yes, it's centered around hockey, but it's also on a lot of their other properties, a lot of their assets that we Scotiabank will be appearing in many, many different places across Rogers' suite of assets. And again, that includes second screen. Gary talked about second and third screen. I mean, my kids kind of watch that today. They're looking at the different stats, and it'd be very good to, when the NHL delivers all the player and puck stats, it's going to keep my kids, hopefully engaged and get off Clash of Clans. And they'll be not that there's anything wrong with Clash of Clans. We can talk about e-gaming later, but honestly, I think it's the ecosystem, and we need to continue to balance and rebalance how we spend that money. There's no more. This is the digital pool. This is the traditional pool. Here's a big bucket of money. Use it to however you can to best contact the customers you want.
So for the vendors here, the team guys, league, governing bodies, that's a pretty helpful answer. I actually find that quite enlightening. Tell us, so digital revenues, Mark, Jeff, feel free to, any of you, Kyle, Jackie, to grab this, but what sort of growth are we seeing in digital revenues? Do you track digital revenues separately, or are we still using kind of this, according to John's point of view, maybe an outdated model? How are digital revenues being conceived of in your organization?
We track them separately, but we call it authentic integration. So you can't just have a rink board and have Scotia up. It's got to be able to tell the Scotia Skater story. You see it in arena, you follow it on Instagram, you post it, the reach is the further, you can touch more people. Digital is our fastest growing piece of our business. It has doubled the last 2 years. It will almost double again this year, and it's
up 100% in
it's
24
8 figures,
months.
and now it's 8 figures. Yeah. It gives us a different reach. You look at the way the leagues have been accompanying and allowing the teams to go out and tell stories differently. We can talk to the whole world now. I was just looking before we got in here at Weibo, and where we've put it on. We've put the NBA has allowed teams to do 2 partners and market them internationally. So if you are Tangerine, we can go. Doesn't make sense for you, but if we were Tim Hortons and you're opening 1,000 branches in Beijing. We can now go ahead and market that in the world. To be able to take those then and amplify that by pushing it out on social, digital, it's changing every single day. It's the number one asked for, I guess, asset that is the backbone and the spine to many of our deals. You look at what we did with Hellman's, what we did with McDonald's, what we've done with Uber, what we've done with Google. They are all digitally driven partnerships. Sure. Every one of them.
Digital-led.
Yes.
But it's still not the biggest part of your revenue mix.
Not yet.
Okay. And
Yeah,
Mark,
I
is
think
that a
that's
similar
where-
experience
Yeah,
at
at the Jays, we're, in Major League Baseball, the best teams in baseball, the New York Yankees, LA Dodgers, generate about $100 million worth of corporate sponsorship on an annual basis. The worst teams, Tampa Rays, those kinds of teams are probably generating, less than $20 million a year in corporate sponsorship. The Jays are up near the top of that list. We measure digital as a separate bucket within that, but it's still only 10% of our total sponsorship revenue. So when Jackie's talking about media spend out of a bucket of digital at 50%, it's a big opportunity for us. Now it's growing, and it's growing exponentially, as Jeff has said. But the one challenge that we're faced with digital is our fans getting pissed off with our communication a little bit if it's too brand centric. It needs to be, it needs to be done in a not heavy-handed brand way. It needs to be content that's created that is brand, glove and hand in glove kind of stuff. It's it's got to be created that it's of interest, and it's also talking about the brand and the team. So that's one of the biggest challenges that we're finding with social and the communication, so it doesn't get tuned out and our fans get upset.
I just jump in too to say, like, from a league standpoint, we don't own the game day experience. That's what the folks at MLSE do night in, night out. Digital is the single best avenue we have to create a one-to-one connection with a fan. And when we look at what we can deliver to a partner, it's not, again, like there's media value you can place on these things, but this is the opportunity to actually bring that programming to life. This is a way to get a fan who's a Leaf fan to know what's happening out west right now while they're searching their Twitter feed. We are investing immense amounts of money into the staff we have in the video review room to make sure that we're pushing out these moments instantaneously, that we have a hand in the voice and storytell that happens, that then gets picked up by media and everyone else. But the ability to, without an intermediary, speak to your fans is so powerful. So you think about what digital can be. I mean, it is the first, like, the fire hose of an opportunity to sit down with your partner and build content that's compelling. So to Mark's point, not something that's just a branded piece that has no reason, has no fan utility. But when you sit together and build out, what do they want to see? How do we frame it in a way that is in line with that platform that you've built together? Then you create magic. And you look at these pieces from a revenue standpoint, yeah, it's growing immensely. We cut an amazing deal at the time, Commissioner, if he's still here, with BAMTech or Baseball Advanced Media, that then morphed into DSS, Disney Streaming Services, that can run and operate sort of the sales side of our transactional business. The value is in the partnership. The value is when you're taking, and again, what I'm delivering is this rights to the NHL IP and the collective use of our marks. The value of that comes to life when you build real content that matters, that's anchored around a unique proposition that you and your partner have built together.
Thank you, that's helpful. Okay, I want to change gears. We've got, as Caroline said, a panel here that's stacked. So why don't we take some questions with our remaining time and let the audience ask you first your thoughts. So there's a microphone here, I see. Great, there's our first brave.
Oh, we're waiting for that. Jeff, can you hold up that beautiful ring you're wearing so you can see that?
It's my first real one. It's pretty cool. Berkey and I were talking about him earlier. And the power of... Okay, I'll pass it. The power of the ring is, I took it to a hospital a couple weeks ago. And a young man, 24 years old, watched every single game, couldn't get out of bed. We brought him to Larry O'Brien. John and I were there together. And then the nurses asked if I'd take the ring down to show Malcolm because he can't get up and go. So he was inspired by seeing the Larry O'Brien. He was actually up in the hall walking. And I gave him the ring, and to see his face, to put it on and watch the nurses cry and him cry, myself cry, it's just the power. Berkey told me about it in the back. We've never really had a big one like this, and to see it, it's so rewarding. It's amazing.
I got in a fight with my collar covering at home.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
so
awesome.
Go ahead, man.
Hi, my name is David Chung. I'm a student at UMass Amherst. And I know the topic of this panel is about maximizing ROI. I was wondering if you guys could talk about some more ethical concerns or other situations you might consider. I'm mostly thinking about the situation what happened with NBA in China and also the Miami Heat stadium naming rights issue. So if you guys have any opinions on that.
So who wants to jump on the NBA and China issue?
I won't jump on. I won't jump on the NBA in China. I'll just. Hey, I'm a banker, right? So reputational risk is very important. Trust is the foundation of our business. So yeah, I mean, there's things that worry us all the time when we do deals with individuals. We have personal services contracts with players. We have deals with teams, and you know, things can go sideways. But you step back and you look at, well, what is the management structure of the NBA? What is the management structure of the NHL? Very confident that the cultures of those two organizations are aligned with doing the right thing for inclusion, diversity, for so many free speech, all those sort of things. So you know, we worry about it. It is super important to have consideration for, and also have plans if something goes sideways.
Do you have morals clauses in your athlete contracts?
Yeah, we do, and you know, it's like anything. I mean, there's been lots of different stories over the years. I also think, though, that athletes in general are better educated, better handlers, better agents to help guide. And we do a lot of work before we sign an athlete to make sure there's a cultural connection.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Thomas Pockernick. I'm a student at Ryerson University. Obviously, whether it be the Jays or MLSE, those are fairly massive brands. I was more wondering if you guys have any tips in attempting to attract partnerships with more smaller companies or even a startup, just trying to grab that first big partnership to kind of kickstart your brand.
I'll go. We also do Raptors 905. We do the Marlies. We do the Argos. We work on. It's not just the Leafs and Raptors. Those are the sexy ones and the fun ones to talk about. Our Raptors Uprising, our e-gaming league, stepping into that and not really knowing that landscape. I literally took my 14-year-old to lunch at Christmas last year to have him explain to me how he can sit there and watch people play video games. And he would say, Dad, you just watched Austin Matthews toe drag one and it's the same thing. And I'm like, what do you mean it's the same thing? And he's like, those people that are playing those games in that world are elite just like those other players are. So as you learn and understand more about different, smaller leagues, I think it's still about listening and the right values. You have to build authentic, integrated partnerships. They have to drive their objectives. And it all starts with listening. If you want to find someone new, and I think of Raptors 905 up in Mississauga, Brampton area where we play, we do very different deals out there. We have local paint deals. We have everyone, because we go and listen. We use the same principles. We use the fabric, that passion and avidity that people have for this mark on the front of that jersey. to be able to make them different and better than their competitors in that space. So it doesn't matter if you're the Maple Leafs, and it doesn't matter if you're Raptors 905. If you keep those same core principles in place, you can meet those objectives of the small paint company out in Mississauga, because they're now getting an awareness and an association with this team that makes them a little bit different and special in that area that will help drive their core business.
Yeah, I just add to that, like, what's corporate partnerships? Corporate partnerships is, a brand trying to tap into the passion and avidity of the team and short circuit that, right? Like, they want to make an emotional connection between their brand and the sports team's brand. And that can be done, very strategically at a big level, tens of millions of dollars. It can also be done at $100,000 or $50,000 if you're doing it smartly and doing it correctly. So all of those stories can be had. It's just about the size of the pool you want to play in. It's about tapping into the connection, tapping into the fandom.
I just might add something there along with that. So we were talking about value creation before, and we've been talking about digital. And value creation really has a lot to do with rethinking your assets, reimagining what they could be. So a really good example, actually, is Snowboard Canada, which I had absolutely nothing to do with, but I love this example. They were really struggling to drive revenue and bring on partners. And when they thought about it from a traditional sense, well, we've got World Cups, we can put them back on the repeater banner, we can maybe have some signage we can put up at events, but it wasn't driving revenue for them. So what they did is they took a big step back and rethought who they are, what assets they have, and they went, wait a minute, we have millennials. Let's figure out how we can capture those millennials, and that's what they're selling now. They figure out a way to build the data, and when they go out to partners, they're not selling banners at the finish line. They're selling millennials.
Yeah. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, we're almost at time, I think. Hi, Anton. I think if you're okay, you'll be the last question for this panel.
Hi, Anton Thun, Cortex Management. And this, Dave, welcome back to Toronto, by the way.
Thank you.
And this actually is more directed to you than anybody else. You're now operating in Europe. You've obviously been very successful with MLSE here in Toronto through a number of years. But based on your experience now, a year or two with Real Madrid?
Yeah, a year and a half.
Different experience, my guess, because I could be wrong, but I think that the marketing and the sponsorship revenues that European clubs generate is disproportionate in terms of their ticket sales, in contrast to the Leafs. So I would think that the integration and the connection to your sponsors is probably that much stronger in Europe than it might even be here in North America. Have you found that, or is it different? Some of your experience might be helpful.
At MLSE, you're right, the biggest revenue stream, and I think for the teams here, is still the gate. No, at a club like Real Madrid, our biggest revenue stream is the partnerships, and in fact, it's really almost about half, with tickets and broadcasts about equal at a quarter each. So I'm finding that very interesting. It creates a whole different host of challenges, cultural, when Chinese aren't like the Swiss, aren't like Brazilians, language issues, time zone issues. So there's a whole level of complexity that I'm trying to still figure my way through. And I was really being truthful when I said that I wanted the question and the point of view on digital. The digital opportunity we have, so Real Madrid, it's about, I got to keep track of it. There's about 230 million followers around the world. It's the biggest brand in the world on digital social. We had 100,000 followers a day. But I'm
Don't you sell like a jersey every 11 seconds?
I don't know that stat. It's the number one selling sports brand globally. So the opportunity is incredible. But on the digital stuff, I have a real strong sense that we have not cracked that at all. Really how to unlock revenue. One of the things I have learned, and one of the reasons, frankly, that I'm there and I have the privilege of being there, is that the sponsorship, use John's word, ecosystem, the partnership marketing ecosystem that we're building in Canada as Canadians is best of breed. And whether that's our friends at the NHL, the COC, MLSE, the Jays, other properties that represent the room, people move around, they change jobs, but we have built a very, very strong group of professionals through days like this, Sponsorship Marketing Council of Canada, the casual beers and learning from one another. And what we're building here stands up really well globally.